Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Bee. I'm also known as the Zine Witch on Instagram. And it was so lovely for Victor to invite me today to talk a little bit about Saturn's journey into Aries, which is going to be one of the bigger transits that we are looking at next month. It's a really exciting time, and I want to bring some attention towards where we can find our power and where we can feel powered. Oftentimes, Saturn gets this fierce reputation in astrology because its attributes are often constricting or restricting in nature. And today, I want to talk a little bit about what we can do, the work that we can put in collectively, how we can use it to empower us. And I hope to really kind of inspire you guys today to think differently about Saturn and to be more excited about the future. So easy to fall into these traps of fear and worry. And that isn't to say that there are some necessary things to be deeply concerned about in this world. However, when we are running out of fear, when we are running out of anxiety, it doesn't really help anybody. But when we tackle challenges with the firm belief that we can collectively make change, I feel personally that this is, a much better approach and it's much more sustainable. Saturn likes things that are sustainable. So that is what I hope to accomplish here today. So just a little background information. My name is B. I am an autistic astrologer. I am based in the United States. And if you want to follow me, I am the Zine Witch on Instagram. And I also have a website, thezinewitch.com, where you can find me and book a reading with me. And I also have a really cool Astro school. As an autistic person, I've always been a bit of an autodidact. I'm a self learner and I tend to work best on my own individually. And so I really try to create a community over the last couple of years, prioritizing the voices of disabled astrologers in our community and to create content that is easily approachable. I like to use a lot of pop culture references because that is stuff that most of us understand and it makes astrology much more easy to understand. And so that's really my goal over there. A client one time said that my astro school is the Netflix of astrology. And I love that because I've been doing this project for quite some time, about 5 years. We have a number of courses over there. I just completed my natal aspects course. I have a transits course, which is about 70 workshops deep over there. I have a composite chart course, which is again about 70 workshops over there. We have a lot of introductions with different astrologers on things like medical astrology or draconic astrology or astrocartography. So, like, there's a lot to learn over there. And I try to keep it at an accessible rate that most people can afford for the amount of content that you get. So there's, literally thousands of hours of learning materials over on my Astro School. So if my workshop today really resonates with you, if you feel that you really want to support some disabled astrologers in our community to build a platform for us, you can go ahead and support my work over there, or you can book a reading with me. So let's dive in. Let's talk about Saturn moving into Aries today. So, when Saturn changes signs, something subtle but seismic happens. It's not loud at first, it's a low rumble inside your life, something you can almost ignore if you try hard enough. But Saturn doesn't move without consequence, it does not knock politely. Saturn breaks the locks on the doors that you were too afraid to open. It calls you out, it strips you bare, and it dares you to become someone real. Saturn is reality, not the curated version of reality that we post online, not the one that we talk about at dinner parties, but it is the raw, unfiltered reality of what we actually are when no one is looking. So, Saturn shows us where we are still hiding behind excuses or projections or half finished dreams, especially in Pisces. So it doesn't care about your potential. It cares about what you build with your blood, with your discipline, and with your courage. So, beginning around May 25th, we feel this beginning stage, this seismic shift of Saturn entering Aries. And Aries is not a planner. Aries doesn't think first, it acts. Aries is the spark that lights the fire before the mind can tell the body to be afraid. It's our survival instincts, our raw will, the first scream of a newborn that refuses to be ignored. It's the primal hunger to exist, not polished, not explained, not justified, just exist. So let's talk a little bit about what Saturn is in terms of just different words we can associate with Saturn in astrology. We have responsibility, we have delays, we have hard work, achievement, boundaries, consequences, our authority figures, karma, and restraint. Now let's talk a little bit about Aries. And I love looking at the signs as developmental stages. I might have a different approach than a lot of astrologers in the sense that when I look at the signs, I look at them as stages of development. And so oftentimes, we are going to have characteristics of the sign before us because I kind of see them as mastered stages. So, for example, if someone is a Cancer sun, right? They tend to have mastered the Gemini stage, right? In previous lifetimes, they have mastered the art of communications. They tend to be, quite pointed with their words. And now they're learning how to open up their emotional world, to create home, to create a sense of family, which isn't always easy. So, maybe you are a Leo sun. And if you're a Leo sun, then you've mastered the Cancer stage. You've mastered the art of family, home, the traditional path. But now you're called to embrace the light, Leo, right? The childlike spirit, the creativity, you know, the inner child, the ability to be seen and appreciated, bravery. So when I look at the signs, I often look at them with consideration to, what is proximity to, like, what signs are proximity to them. So when I explain Aries, I often use this metaphor in the Jewish tradition to celebrate the new year, which is the first month of the zodiacal cycle. We blow something called a shofar, which is the ram's horn, and it has this piercing sound that really can disrupt the entire room. It is a sound that is so raw, oftentimes, it shakes the soul awake. It's like a blast of fury, a cry of warning, a summons to stand at attention. And that's Aries, when the soul refuses to stay asleep. So traditionally, the shofar sound declared war. It gathered the tribe, and it's announcing a turning point. It cuts through confusion and fear and distraction because it forces presence. And that's exactly what Saturn in Aries does. It demands that we show up in our bodies, in our lives, in our battles, ready or not. So, Saturn in Aries is not asking us to be perfect. It's asking us to be willing, to be raw, to be unfinished, and to, wage a war, so to speak, right? We got to fight for the things that we want in life sometimes. And this is kind of that energy coming in. It's baptism by fire. And fire by nature, it destroys before it purifies, right? So this transit will not cradle you in soft hands. It will actually tear you down and tear down all the scaffolding that you like built to keep yourself small. It will expose every lie that you've been telling yourself about why you can't, why you're not ready, why you need more time. Saturn is time. And it will burn through your avoidance like wildfire through dry grass. It is not enough to want change. It is not enough to visualize success. It is not enough to read books, to say the affirmations, to journal your dreams. You must act. You must risk. You must stand up before you are you are destroyed by this energy. So this sounds very scary in nature, but it's not. It's asking you to essentially stop the wishful thinking, stop the affirmations, even though those things can be very powerful, but it's actually asking you to take inspired action. Saturn in Aries invites you to really step into the battlefield of your own life, not as a polished warrior, but as, a recruit who has like no choice but to fight or be flattened by fate. So it's here in the blood, in the mud, in the bruises that true self respect is born. This is, as Joseph Campbell said, the hero's journey. It's not about the praise of others. It's not about the safety of success, but it's actually about the quiet knowing that you did not abandon yourself when it freaking mattered, right? So during these next 2.5 years, the invitation, the demand, it's simple, but it's also kind of brutal. Own your life, own your will, own your rage. Rage is sacred. Own your right to exist without apology, without excuse, without waiting for permission. This is not exactly a comfortable transit, but it is an opportunity for rebirth. And real births, they're bloody sometimes, guys. All the moms out there who've given birth, you know the strain, but it's so beautiful, right? It changes who you are, your relationship to how you act, how you move forward when you have a child. And that's Saturn in Aries. Psychologically, Saturn in Aries is about facing the places where your survival strategies have become your cages. Maybe once, anger kept you alive. Maybe once rebellion was your only defense. Maybe once disappearing made you safe. But Saturn asks, is this still serving you? Or are you letting your survival tactics sabotage your life? Because Saturn in Aries will show you the anger that you don't own, it will own you. The will you don't direct will self destruct. The battle that you refuse to fight will find you anyway, and it will not be on your own terms. So during this time, every old wound around self worth, autonomy, rage, and failure It's going to be cracked open like a fault line under pressure. But it's not to destroy you, it's to forge you. And the question will not be, are you ready? The question will be, are you willing to bleed for something that matters more than your fear? So I thought we could look at a few people who have Saturn and Aries natally, so we can really see a living embodiment of these energies. Here we go. So when I was looking at people who have Saturn and Aries, I just had to laugh because if you're familiar with any of these people, the message is right clear as day. Sometimes astrology can, be quite literal. But for those who don't, let's talk about it. So the first person that came to mind was Joe Rogan, who built an empire by refusing to be domesticated, pushing forward even when sophistication and depth were still catching up. He is the embodiment of unchecked Aries hunger, a force that cuts through comfort and conformity. His relentless drive to speak his raw, unpolished truths, no matter the fallout, that really reflects the Saturn and Aries ability to push through boundaries. But also, there's a dangerous side to that drive, his propensity for divisiveness, his irresponsibility with his words. And, he's a fighter, literally. He's been working with the UFC for over 20 years. In fact, that's exactly what happened during the last Saturn and Aries transit, which would have been his Saturn return. This is when he started working with the UFC. Well, his was very many months was trying to get his friend to leave this awful relationship, and very sadly that took a very dark turn during this time, during his Saturn return, when his life was taken by domestic violence. And so for this period of time, Rogan was not able to perform. He was not able to do stand up. It was kind of a little bit of a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, for him. So he did eventually, of course, get back to the game. He kept swinging in a battle of his own making without any real thought of who gets hurt. There is no growth when Saturn's energy is only used to fuel ego without responsibility. So these are things we need to really consider during Saturn and Aries. Then there's one of my favorites, George Carlin, whose razor sharp wit and his courage really broke apart societal illusions, and he really weaponized words to obliterate accepted norms, refusing to be palatable or politically safe. Carlin's defiance of establishment rules is like very quintessential Saturn and Aries energy. It's raw, it's relentless, sometimes unforgiving. He did not wait for permission to call out bullshit. He embodied the Aries archetype by burning through comfort zones with, a mindset on shaking up the system. But Carlin's brilliance wasn't about rage. It was about taking that rage and directing it into something purposeful. He was like a true warrior of truth, using his platform not to destroy, but to incite change. This is something Rogan prides himself on as well. I don't care for his brand personally. Maybe you do if you're watching this at home, but these are the movers and the shakers, the people who are here to literally kind of viscerally break down the system, whatever the system may be. Now we have Bill Burr too. He's a comedic genius, really, who's unfiltered rage and chaotic humor. It really carved a space for brutal honesty in a world that prefers polished lies. Burr's comedy isn't just about laughing at the absurdity of life, it's about confronting the uncomfortable, staring down the hard truths. This is Saturn in Aries, the willingness to stand in the mess, to speak from a raw and often, painful place, and to force others to face things that they would rather avoid. Burr does not give a damn about your comfort. He shows you the disarray of life and he dares you to accept it. And then here's another one, Judd Apatow, who used his own instincts to really build platforms for others, showing that leadership isn't just about force, it's sometimes choosing to believe in the messy brilliance of others. So the Aries flavor of Apatow's work is, deeply rooted in improv. Improv is within itself very Aries kind of energy. It's that raw, unfiltered human energy pushing actors to embody their characters fully in the moment, often without a script. So improv is like pure Aries energy, spontaneous, gut driven, vulnerable. It's creation in the moment, the willingness to act, even when you have no idea how it will turn out. Apatow's belief in the power of chaotic, messy form of expression in his Saturn and Aries energy is a real manifesting of his trust in the untamed process of creation. And then one of my favorites, Lauren Graham. Any Gilmore Girl fans out there? She has this great wit and resilience that's really carved a place in the industry that rarely waits for anyone. She's a master of timing and delivery, and her humor is really cut from the cloth of authenticity. It's raw, it's grounded, it's ready to face whatever comes. In her career, she's embodied the struggle to show up authentically without seeking approval or permission. Saturn in Aries isn't just about pushing forward, it's about asserting your worth in spaces that don't always respect you. She built herself on a foundation of unwavering self belief in her work and in her voice. And now, maybe more currently, we have Luigi Maggioni, who is about to have a Saturn return within the next 2 years. And he's really standing at the cliff, on the edge of what is possible right now. Someone who is being stripped of every excuse, about to, meet the brutal mirror of consequences, not to punish him, but to give him the gift of becoming who he's meant to be. If he's brave enough to answer that call, which he seems to be. I want to be careful not to speak too deeply on this because at present time, we don't have all of the facts about his case. But this certainly is a case about waging war on systems, not taking shit anymore, right? His ability to may or may not have acted allegedly in that way against a system that was exploitative will certainly be subject matter that we will be speaking about collectively for the next 2 years. Now, one of the biggest conjunctions that will be happening with Saturn moving into Aries is obviously this conjunction that's happening with Neptune, the planet of vision, illusion, delusion, spirituality. So when these two get together, Saturn is structure, but Neptune shows some level of disillusion or transcendence. So there's this global moment where the old scaffolding that once upheld collective dreams, it might actually erode. It forces us to confront what is real versus what has merely been wished for. So it may feel like standing in a fog, being asked to build a house, a call to bring shape to visions without losing their spirit. on a personal level, it really challenges individuals to navigate disillusionment with courage, to commit to their ideals in a grounded way, or to surrender structures that no longer serve any true emotional or spiritual purpose. One of my favorite artists is Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth. And she was actually born with this conjunction, and very tight at that. And so I think she's such an emblematic figure of this energy. Her work, from Sonic Youth's more experimental noise to her raw minimalist art, it reflects this collision between the urge to rebel against convention, which is Neptune, and the instinct to create something enduring and tangible out of that rebellion, which is, of course, Saturn's craftsmanship. She is somebody who has had a very sustainable career. Just even today, as I'm recording this is her 72nd birthday. And she is still creating powerful music. Her legacy inspired bands that completely changed the world. Nirvana may be the most common example. People called Kurt Cobain this voice of a generation. But Kurt Cobain, he was madly inspired by Kim Gordon. They were close friends. They toured together. I would venture to say that there are many bands that revolutionized the 90s that would not be here unless Sonic Youth broke down that door of independent music first. They were the door breakers. So for those of us living through the upcoming transit, her life really offers this blueprint to embrace the mess of the unknown without losing the discipline needed to carve meaning out of it. We will be called to build structures that are fluid and imaginative, to dream responsibly, and to accept that true mastery sometimes means working with the grain of disillusionment rather than against it. Saturn Neptune is not about forcing clarity. It's about learning to navigate and work within ambiguity, and like trusting that meaning can be shaped even when the raw material is mist or ruin or silence. Saturn now hands all of us the hammer. Build yourself or be broken by what you refuse to face. And this just isn't just about them. This is about all of us. We will all be asked, where have I been hiding behind half efforts and half truths? Where have I mistaken passion for commitment? Where have I let fear masquerade as practicality? Saturn in Aries, ooh, it forces us to reckon with the parts of ourselves that want to stay, children forever, waiting for rescue, waiting for permission, waiting for guarantees. But there are no guarantees here. Those people that I mentioned that have Saturn and Aries, they didn't wait for a guarantee. They made their own freaking door. They tore the door down, right? So there is only the fire, the fight, and the slow, brutal beauty of forging yourself into something real. It is in these ordinary, brutal days, the days where it feels like nothing is happening, like progress is invisible, that you are laying the foundation for a life that no one can take from you. And this foundation is not built of, grand gestures. It's built of small, stubborn acts of will. Getting up when you want to quit. Speaking when your voice shakes. Starting again after you failed. Taking one more step when your body says stop. The ones who will have something real to show at the end of this transit are not the ones who felt the most confident or the ones who looked the most impressive online, it will be the ones that stay. The ones who, kept swinging the hammer through the shame, through the fear, through the fatigue. The ones who learn to love the fight, not because it's glamorous, but because it's theirs. Saturn in Aries asks, are you willing to carry your own fire? Are you willing to build even when it hurts? Are you willing to choose discipline over adrenaline, construction over chaos, and real work over impulsive rage? Because no one is coming to save us. We got to save ourselves. The princess is saving herself in this one. And no one is going to hand you the life that you dream about. You got to build that from scratch. You have to become the person who can build it anyway. And when Saturn leaves Aries in about 2.5 years, you won't recognize yourself if you stayed, right? You'll be stronger, you'll be sharper, more dangerous, more alive. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the world. Because you choose to face yourself in the fire and you choose to stay. This is the work. This is the call. This is the war. And it begins now. So if you love this lecture and you would like to support my work, these are the places that you can find me. You can book a reading at thezenewitch.com. You can join my Astro school over on Patreon. You get thousands of videos over there on astrology. It's really great. I would love to have some new students. And especially if you are neurodivergent, come embrace us all, because we're mostly a neurodivergent community. And then you can follow me on Instagram at thezenewitch. I would love to meet all of you guys. So introduce yourself if you so feel inclined. Leave a comment down below on Viktor's page. And I will be back soon, hopefully. I'd love to contribute with Viktor again. So maybe you guys will see me. In the meantime, I would just love to thank Viktor for inviting me today, for getting to speak with you guys. And I hope that Saturn and Aries treats you well. So I ask you guys, what do you have the courage to build? Think about it. Write about it. Meditate on it. Because you got this.